I'm Billy. And welcome to Jack of Trades. In the previous video, we have learned the basic installation of Laravel Livewire and all the necessary setup that is most common in a Laravel application. If you happen to be new here, you may have skipped the previous video, which was the installation process, so you better check that out. I put the link in the description below, so it is easier for you to follow along in this Laravel series. Moving on, I have prepared a local database called Laravel Livewire Site DB for our little demo. As you can see, we need to replace the database name from the .env file located in the root directory of our application. When we installed Laravel, it creates 3 migration files in the database/migrations directory. These 3 files are necessary to create the initial database table for our application, including the users table. Next is, we run the command php artisan migrate to create the tables in our database. As you can see, it creates a bunch of tables in our database after running the command. Next, we run php artisan serve command to run our local server. Now, let's create 2 users just for the sake of this demo. Now that we created 2 users, we can now start making the create and read functionality in our application using Livewire. We will put our Livewire component in the /home page route in this example. Let's delete this part right here because we're going to replace this part with our Livewire component. There's something else we need to do. When we go to the Livewire documentation, it tells us that we need to include 2 blade directives in our head tag and body tag before we could run Livewire in our application. So let's do that. Go to resources/views/layouts directory and add these directives into your app.blade.php. Put the Livewire CSS in the head tag and put the Livewire JavaScript in the body tag at the end. After that, we can now create our first Livewire component. Let's go to the documentation and copy the command as what they have instructed. Go to your command line and paste it in. In this demo, we will create a post component where we create, read, update, and delete posts. So I'm going to replace the counter with posts and hit enter. As you can see, 2 files have been created after we run the command. The first file is located at app/http/livewire directory, and the second one is located at resources/views/livewire directory. Let's open up these 2 files and start making our post create and read. Let's add in some sample text to our post component. Now that we open up our 2 files, let's try to include our Livewire component in the existing home.blade.php by typing in at Livewire. Then, inside the parameter is our post template. Let's reload the home page, and we will see that our Livewire post template is now added in the home page. And in our Livewire/post template, we will add a text input to see the magic that Livewire does to our application. Livewire uses the concept of data binding, just like how Vue.js or Angular does. If you happen to work with those 2 technologies, then you're already familiar with the idea. But, if you're not yet familiar with it, Livewire synchronizes the current value in your HTML element with the specific property in your class component. By adding wire model, This means that you are telling Livewire to synchronize or bind the property title to a public property in our post Livewire component class title. We should match what's written in our blade template to the class property inside our class component. Here, we declare the property title as public. And for us to see the real magic of Livewire, let's echo out title in our post.blade template. Let's reload the page and witness the Livewire magic. As we type in the text box, we see that Livewire also updates public variable title in real time. Now, let's open up Google Chrome's Developers tool and see what is happening. Right-click, and click Inspect, and go to the Network tab and observe. As soon as we type in the text, Livewire actually does an AJAX request to the server and updates the HTML value on our Livewire frontend template. That's how Livewire does the data binding out of the box. Now that we uncovered the mystery of how Livewire works, let's proceed to this tutorial's actual goal. Let's add in another HTML element for our content. Later on, we will be adding a post table in our database to save our post in our record. We will create a property in our post component class file and match it with the form element wire model in our frontend template. There is a built-in Livewire Actions click, one of the built-in features in Livewire that handles the click event. Other events are available in Livewire such as keydown, hover, and change. You can refer to their documentation. I will put the link in the description below. In our case, we are adding an HTML form element button to handle the click event. I'm going to add a random text to demonstrate to you that whatever text you put in the wire click, you also add the same function name to your component class. I'm going to copy these text right here. And when we open our post class file, we create a function that matches with what we just wrote in the frontend post.blade template. So, in this example, let's just change the value of the public variable title. When we go back to the front end and click the button, we can see that the text box for the title is set to the value we just put in our post class file. So that's how we handle events in Livewire. We can run a back-end code from the front end without us having to code actual JavaScript. That's how powerful Livewire is. Now, let's rename this to save so that we can work with a much meaningful name in our example. Let's remove this line right here to add the real functionality of our save event. We will be saving our post in our database post table. To do that, we have to create another model and migration file for our post table like so. Type in PHP artisan make model post -- migrations to create our post model along with the migration file. Let's add the title, the description, and the user ID before we run our migration. Now, let's run the migration file. As you can see, we now have a post table ready for our CRUD operations. Let's save our post every time we click the button Save in the front end. To do that, let's import our post model in our post Livewire component class. Let's prepare the data that we are going to save in our database. We put in our title and content public variable to match our database field in this example. We save our data by typing in post :create and passing in the data variable in the parameter like so. We also need to add a protected fillable variable in our model class post. Otherwise, Laravel will throw us an exception. We also need to pass the user ID of the current user to add a filter by user to our post records. Let's try to save our post. As you can see, we can save our post just by triggering the back-end code from the front end. We can add as many events as we want with Livewire depending on the type of event that we want to emit. We can see a little bit of a problem here. Every time we click save, the texts are not removed in the text boxes. To solve that, let's create a function that kind of like sets all the public variables we have in our class back to empty. And call that function right after the post create in our save function. I think that looks pretty good. Now, let's see it in action. Moving on, let's add a bit of validation to our form. In Livewire, there is a built-in component function called Hydrate that always runs whenever a class property is updated. Let's put our validation example in Hydrate function to demonstrate the power of Livewire effectively. Let us also update our post blade template to make the error appear every time a validation error occurs. As you can see, every time we type in and there is a validation error, we automatically see our form displays the error in real time. And we didn't even have to write a JavaScript to achieve this. Livewire does it for us right out of the box. Let us add the read functionality for our little application. We will add a simple data table in our front end to display the list of our created posts. Of course, we will filter our posts by user ID. Now that we added our simple data table, it's quite reasonable that we should add a bit of convenience for us when displaying our data table. And adding pagination is the simple answer to that. We didn't want to load all our data all at once on the same page. That is to prevent performance issues. We should find a way not to load all the data in a single blow. And one to solve that is by pagination. Livewire pagination implementation is pretty straightforward, so it is easy for you to wrap your head around with it. And the way we do that in Livewire is we just put use with pagination at the top of our component class file and add pagination to our post model. Now, let's add in the pagination link on the front end. As you can see, with a little bit of configuration, we were able to achieve simple pagination instantly with Livewire. But, we got a little bit of a problem here. Since we just mixed up all the properties in one Livewire component file and the form validations, we encounter a logical error that is evident every time we click on one of the pagination links. This form validation in the Hydrate function is the one that's causing our pagination to stop. To solve this, we will separate all the form-related HTML elements in another Livewire component. So just like we did before, we will add another Livewire component. In this example, I will create another Livewire component called postForm to separate our logic. We will then add the postForm view in our post.blade.php as child component. Remove this portion in here and put this in the postform.blade template. We will then add the postform template in the parent component. As you can see, it's already working since we separated the logic for our pagination and form elements. There are many times that we need to isolate specific logics in our Livewire component. And this isolation that we did is one of those few good examples. Because each time a property changes, Livewire components makes a round trip to the server back to the front end. And primarily when we use Hydrate Lifecycle hook with form validation, it prevents us from executing other stuff in our code because it throws us a validation exception. In the next video, we will add a modal to wrap our form element so that it doesn't float around in the design. And with that, we will learn how to add event listeners in the front end and the back end. We will also learn how to emit events from the back end to the front end and vice versa. There you go. I hope you find this video valuable in helping you out to understand Livewire better in a real-world application example. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Please hit subscribe if you are new to this channel. And you can also get notified by clicking the notification bell whenever a new video is up. So stay tuned and see you in the next video.